The Adani-JKIA deal has sparked a lot of controversy and debate in Kenya over the management of Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, JKIA, the country's largest airport. Many people believe that the deal is improper, leading to public protests and a nationwide debate about its implications. Here's a simplified explanation of the entire situation, its origins, and how it might affect Kenyans and the economy in general. What is the Adani-JKIA deal? The Adani-JKIA deal is an arrangement that would allow Adani Enterprises, a large Indian conglomerate, to take over the management and development of JKIA for a period of 30 years. This plan involves expanding and operating the airport under a build, operate and transfer (BOT) model. Essentially, Adani would be responsible for building and managing the airport facilities, and after 30 years, they would hand over control back to the Kenyan government. Why is it controversial? Many people are upset about this deal for several reasons. 1. Secrecy and lack of transparency. Critics argue that the terms of the deal were not made clear to the public. There's been very little communication from the government, which has led to a lot of speculation and fear that this deal may not benefit Kenyans. 2. Job security. Airport workers, particularly those represented by unions, fear that the deal could lead to job losses. The Aviation Workers Union has been vocal in its opposition to the deal, saying that workers' jobs and benefits may be at risk if a foreign company like Adani takes over. 3. Higher costs for airport users. Another concern is that Adani's plan involves increasing fees for passengers and other users of the airport, with a 52% rise in fees predicted in the first year alone. This could make JKIA less attractive as a hub for international flights, which could have ripple effects across the Kenyan economy. 4th, terms of the deal. The deal includes a condition that no new airports would be allowed within 100 to 150 kilometers of JKIA. This restriction has raised eyebrows as it would limit competition and potentially give Adani a near monopoly over aviation services in the region. Moreover, if any future government were to build another airport within that radius, Adani would be entitled to compensation. How did we get here?
We need to work with investors to give us a new airport in Nairobi. I have seen many people saying William Ruto wants to sell the airport. Am I a madman? How do you sell a strategic national asset? You have to be insane. What we want to do in the airport is to work under the PPP program. And people must understand, PPP has the potential, public-private partnership has the potential to bring in private sector money, blend it with public sector investment to be able to create an outcome that brings win-win.
The story of JKIA's potential redevelopment dates back to 2013, when the Kenyan government first launched plans to expand the airport, including building a new terminal and a second runway. However, that project stalled in 2016 due to political disagreements and disputes among private contractors. When President William Ruto took office in 2022, there was renewed interest in reviving some of the stalled infrastructure projects, including the JKIA expansion. The government considered using a public-private partnership (PPP) model to finance the airport's upgrade, as the state didn't have enough money for such a large project. That's when Adani Enterprises entered the picture, submitting a proposal to take on the project. The role of Adani Enterprises. Adani Enterprises is one of India's largest companies, involved in industries like energy, logistics, and infrastructure. In recent years, the company has expanded its interests into airports, both in India and abroad. Adani's proposal to the Kenyan government was a privately initiated proposal, PIP, which is a faster method of negotiation compared to competitive bidding. The company opposed an open bidding process, saying it would take too long. However, critics have pointed out that skipping an open tender could lead to less transparency and potentially a worse deal for Kenya. Concerns raised by experts. Independent consultants who evaluated the deal have raised some major concerns. A firm called ALG, which advises on airport projects, suggested that Adani's financial demands are too high and that the return on investment the company is asking for, between 18% and 21%, is excessive. Typically, returns on such projects are much lower, between 8% and 15%. Another issue raised by ALG was that Adani's plan doesn't include essential infrastructure like a second runway. This omission could create uncertainty and disputes in the future, especially if JKIA grows and requires more capacity. Impact on Kenyans. 1. Job losses. One of the most immediate concerns is that the Adani takeover could result in the loss of jobs at JKIA. Workers fear that once Adani takes control, they may bring in their own staff or cut costs by reducing the workforce. 2. Increased costs. Adani plans to raise fees for airport users, which could make air travel more expensive for passengers. It might also discourage airlines from using JKIA as a hub, affecting tourism and other businesses that rely on the airport. 3. Impact on Kenya's global image. JKIA is one of the busiest airports in Africa and serves as a major hub for international flights. Any mismanagement or controversies surrounding the airport could damage Kenya's image as a safe and reliable destination for business and tourism. Economic effects. 1. Positive impact. If Adani successfully modernizes and expands JKIA, it could improve the airport's capacity and efficiency. A better airport could attract more airlines and tourists, boost Kenya's aviation industry, and create jobs in the long term. 2. Negative impact. However, the proposed increase in fees and the restrictive terms of the deal could deter airlines from using JKIA as a regional hub. If the airport becomes too expensive or less competitive, Kenya could lose out to other airports in the region like Addis Ababa or Johannesburg. This would hurt the Kenyan economy, particularly in sectors like tourism and international trade. 3. Monopolization of aviation services. The restriction on building other airports within a 100 to 150 kilometre radius could limit competition and stifle development in Kenya's aviation sector. This might hurt regional economies that depend on airport infrastructure to grow their industries. Public reactions. Public opinion is largely against the deal, with many Kenyans feeling that the deal is not in the country's best interest. The lack of transparency has made people skeptical of the government's intentions, and the aviation workers' strike is a sign of widespread discontent. Passengers were left stranded at JKIA due to the strike, and many people have expressed frustration over the way the government has handled the situation. Some argue that Kenya should focus on strengthening its own institutions instead of handing over critical infrastructure like JKIA to foreign companies. What should be done? 1. More transparency. The Kenyan government needs to be more transparent about the terms of the deal and ensure that it is in the best interest of the country. Open communication with the public and key stakeholders, like airport workers, is essential. 2. Open tender process. Experts have recommended that the project go through an open tender process to ensure that the best deal is made for Kenya. This would also help build trust in the process. 3. Protect workers' rights. The government should make sure that the rights and jobs of workers at JKIA are protected. Any transition to new management should include guarantees that current employees will not be unfairly dismissed or lose benefits. 4. Consider long-term impact. The government must carefully consider the long-term economic impacts of this deal. It is important to balance short-term financial gains with the long-term needs of the country, especially in terms of infrastructure development and job creation. Conclusion. The Adani-JKIA deal is a complex and controversial issue that has raised important questions about the future of Kenya's most important airport. While there are potential benefits to modernising JKIA, many Kenyans are concerned about the lack of transparency, the potential for job losses, and the economic impact of handing over such a critical asset to a foreign company. As the situation unfolds, it is important for the government to ensure that any deal made is in the best interest of the Kenyan people, and that proper steps are taken to address public concerns and protect the country's economic future. How do you feel about the Adani Group? How do you think this will affect Kenyans and the economy? Share your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and share it with your friends and family. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing for more trending news and stories.